Funds the Arts was established in 2004 as a public charitable trust in memory of Toto, who was a young man passionate about music, books and films over the years, and we now give recognition to the work of musicians, writers, photographers, filmmakers and digital artists as well. To mark this important moment, TFA has been hosting a series of public events that allow us to connect with longlisted applicants and winners from the previous years. And the event here today is one such. It forms a part of a series of rehearsed readings. This is the second one in the series. Rehearsed readings of plays that have won the Toto Award for Creative Writing in English. Today we present Pagdi, the play for which writer, actor, director Swetanshu Bora won the Toto in 2013. Swetanshu has been nominated for several other awards and residencies and has also acted in over 30 plays, some of which he even directed. This reading of Pagdi, which is also directed by Swetanshu, will be presented to us by Vivek Vijayakumaran, who is an award-winning actor, trainer, director and theatre maker. TFA would like to thank Atta Galatta for partnering with us in presenting these readings, and would also like to thank the contribution of Sachin Ravindran for handling lights and sound, for Lakshman Bibi, who is helping us with videography, Virginia Rodriguez, who is helping us with photography today, and also for Karnel Singh, who has helped Vivek tie the Pagdi. Have fun, have a good time. Thank you.
My favorite is lemon green. It's not my favorite color, just on turbans. On a turban, lemon green looks fantastic. Because of that, now I notice green everywhere. On buses, shoes, ice cream cones, hairbands, even on the national flag. A lot, right? There's almost every color in there. Rohit, my flatmate, says that I could hold an exhibition if I wanted. If you're wondering why they look a little faded, it's because they're old. About 5 to 6 years old. Some even older. Memory is such a funny thing. Whether you like it or not, you always remember things that you don't want to. You could bury it in your subconscious and go on living without thinking about it for days, for years. But at some point, it resurfaces. And it's vivid, it's detailed, it's fresh. You remember everything. Your body remembers everything. The muscles on your face cringing, the calves on your legs tightening, the feeling of senselessness on your fingers, the mind flooded with fast moving images of the past, the present. Blur. My boss tells me that the first thing he notices when he steps out of his cabin is my turban. He says that sometimes it feels like a lotus flower in a pond. I'm guessing he's talking of the days I wear red. He also says that he thinks I tie the best turbans. I'm pretty good, I have to say. But no one could tie a pagdi like my father. He tied it with such care and precision. It was as though it was a part of his body. And he never rushed it. He was the one who taught me how to tie a pagdi. He was the one who tied the first pagdi on my head. I wish I could show you the album of my Dastar Bandi. My father had bought a suit 4 months earlier, a grey suit. Days before the ceremony, he took me to the market to buy me a turban. I remember it was Sunday, it was early in the morning and cold. And I was worried that we would not get back home to watch something I wanted to catch on television. I was dressed in a thick sweater and a monkey cap. And my father, in his navy blue sweater, navy blue pants, and navy blue pagdi. His beard cropped and his moustache touched up. We took a cycle rickshaw for 4 rupees. 4 rupees. Sometimes I can't believe that I lived through a period where one could do something with 4 rupees. We reached the market before time. Papa decided to get a cup of tea and wait for the shop to open. He bought me a chocolate. And remember, the streets were being cleaned, vegetables were being brought in on giant carts, people were greeting each other loudly, and I was getting upset. Upset that the shop hadn't opened up yet. Papa sat me down and we watched everyone go about their jobs. My father was not a very talkative man. Even when we had guests, he would not speak much. I always sensed that was because he was extremely dissatisfied with how much he had achieved in his life. We were farmers. Like others in Amritsar, we grew wheat, rice, sugarcane. It was a family business that he had inherited. But there was something else. We used to be in Delhi. I knew that because my eldest sister grew up there till we moved to Amritsar. She would tell us stories about Delhi. How one day our parents just decided to move. Just like that. I never knew if he ever wanted to become something else. Maybe he didn't have the choice. It's so odd now that I think about it. We never ask our parents about their fantasies, what they wanted to be when they were young. Somehow we never think of them that way. Young. I did have a slight hunch that he wanted to become a pilot. Because every time a plane flew over a house, he would follow its trail till it was out of sight. And he would have been an excellent pilot. Imagine a 6 feet broad-shouldered, 6 feet 2 inches broad-shouldered man with an intimidating beard, moustache with edges as sharp as a sword, and a heaving, gallant navy blue turban. Charming, isn't it? Now I know that has nothing to do with his ability to fly a plane, but you must admit that he does fit the look very well. It's all speculation, of course. It's not like I ever asked him. I guess I would just like to believe that my father wanted to become a pilot. I approve of that ambition. So we sat there in silence, just gazing at the commotion around us. My father sipped on his tea and I held tightly onto my chocolate. Eventually the shop opened and he bought me my first set of turbans. Yellow, green, grey, and of course, navy blue. A lot of his things were navy blue. Socks, pants, turbans, pens, our ESD motorcycle, and of course, his copy of the Guru Granth Sahib. Once a month, he would take us to the Golden Temple. Once a week, he would read from the Guru Granth Sahib. My 2 sisters and me huddled around with our heads covered, listening to him. I hated it. I couldn't believe that my 2 elder sisters had gone through this for so many years. How could they? I later discovered that they had developed the technique of looking straight at my father, having him believe that we were deeply interested, when actually their minds were completely somewhere else altogether. It was fantastic. I observed them a few times afterwards. The technique was flawless. Sometimes I almost made a giggle out and my sisters would give me a cold look. My father would continue reading, of course, unflinchingly. When we got home from the market that day after buying my turbans, my entire family was standing on the porch watching the rickshaw drive in. My father exchanged a big smile with my mother and my 2 sisters were giggling. It was as though I was being brought in for a marriage proposal. It was the most embarrassing moment of my life. I got off the rickshaw and bhagoed towards my room, with both my sisters behind me yelling, "Oi hoi, Sardarji! Oi hoi!" My mother asked them to stop bothering me, and I locked myself in the bathroom. Sardarji. It was the first time anyone had called me that. I looked at my patka in the mirror and wondered if I was ready to be a Sardarji. Had the time really come? I stepped forward to look more closely. The moustache was still sparse, there was hair growing unevenly on my face. I looked like a little rat. How was I going to wear a turban? A turban that is complemented with with thick beards, giant frames, and deep-set voices. How was I going to pull this off? As luck would have it, I was also the first among my friends to get a Dastarbandi. Even Bunty hadn't gone through it. Bunty, he's doing well. He has a daughter, almost 4 years old now. His left eye is still smaller than his right, and his pagdi still leans to the left. He was my best friend. We have done bhayankar things together, like best friends do. Riding to the Vaga, cheering and clapping for the Indian soldier, drinking rum from the bottle that Bunty would steal from his uncle's shop, driving my father's jeep on GT Road in the evenings, sometimes in the night. That morning, the morning of my Dastari, my father took out his grey suit like a retired soldier takes out his gun from the closet. Everything was set. The invites had been sent out. The preparations to host everyone was done. There was a buzz in the house. Everyone was moving around fast. No one, not really noticing anyone else. There were so many people. People I had never seen before in our house. Our dogs were going crazy barking at them. We left for the Gurudwara in our sumo. 10 of us packed in. My parents, my sisters, me, 2 uncles of mine with their respective wives who had specially come in for the occasion. One from Ludhiana and the other from Ambala. Me and my sisters clamped together in the front seat, my father driving in his grey suit, navy blue pagdi, and sparkling black shoes. And there was singing and jokes about me becoming a man, a Sardar, and whether I was ready to be the second man of the house. And through the corner of my eye, I could see my father break a small smile. Eyes still focused on the road, hand gripping the gear a little tighter, approving of both the thought and the question. What a day it was. The last turn of the pagdi went in, and my father gazed at me. There he was, his son in a pagdi. The entire Gurudwara erupted, and away we went for celebrations. Dancing, food, merriment and madness. I wish I could show you those pictures. I've cleared my 10th with flying colours. 89%, 5th in class. If you just counted my maths and science scores and left the languages out, my average was 95. My entire family was so proud. People poured into our house with sweets and sat on our veranda for hours together. Our servants served them tea and pakoras and samosas. We were the talk of the village. It was sometime then that my father asked me, one evening, sitting next to a bonfire, he asked me what I wanted to become, what I wanted to do with this education. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time my father had ever asked me about it. I was caught off guard. And it was such a wrong time to ask me that question. If he'd asked me the same question even a year later, I would have said an astronaut or a doctor or something equally awe-inspiring. But at that point, I was just smitten by MTV. At that point, I really wanted to become a VJ, a video jockey. But that's something you can't tell your father just after you scored 89% and you were gifted cable television for it. So I told him that I didn't know. There was silence. And even silence with someone like my father sounds like the worst avalanche. There was only the sound of wood as it burnt its way to charcoal. My father stared into the fire. I felt like I had disappointed him. The boy who scored 89% doesn't know what he wants to do. I immediately started to think of things I could say to salvage the situation. A doctor, a businessman, maybe a pilot. And that's when he said, "There's nothing left here. Go away. Far away." Something in his tone was different. It felt personal, like never before. He said he wanted me to study abroad, become something there. "There's nothing left here. Go away. Far away." I was more than happy to oblige. I had always been ambitious. And with my father's backing, I really felt I could do whatever I wanted. Go wherever I wanted. It was the perfect plan. Work hard in the 12th, give the entrance exams for DU, get in and leave. I had had enough of Amritsar. And even Chandigarh didn't lure me as much. I felt Delhi was the place for me, with its people, its culture, its energy. Besides, I couldn't wait to get out of the house. Out of Amritsar. My elder sister was married by then. She finished her BSc and then okayed the idea of getting married to the manager of a tractor showroom on Hall Road and waited for the day he impregnated her. She would tell me that she never saw life any other way. That she was sure of her destiny right from the start. Even doing BSc was just so that she could get an educated husband. I decided to tell my father about wanting to go to Delhi. I expected to be asked a lot of questions. Instead, I was asked only two. Why do you want to go? Why only Delhi? When I answered, my father went into deep thought. And my mother was in the room too, silently considering the matter. I thought the idea of me pursuing engineering at a place like Delhi would be welcome news to my father. For a brief moment, I feared that perhaps he had a similar ambition for me as he had for my sisters. Did he change his mind about having me educated abroad and now wanted me to join him in the business? Maybe open a garment shop in Kapada Bazaar? Luckily, that wasn't to be, and he agreed to let me go. The results came in. Through the maddening rush, I pushed my way through to reach the board on which were the names of those admitted. They were written in alphabetical order. I went straight to my letter K, and there I was, the 5th K. The dream had begun. I had made it to Delhi. I lived in 3 rooms during my 4 years of engineering in Delhi. 103, 304 and 501. It was the first time I was in a hostel. Away from home, family, away from the suffocations of small ambitions that plagued me in Amritsar. Just the way I wanted it. I remember looking at the room and thinking it was fantastic. There was a cot, a study table, a cupboard, and a window that overlooked a courtyard with a small football ground. The window pane was understandably shattered. It was in the 3rd semester that I met Geet. She was a year senior, so largely unapproachable. But in my 2nd year of college, in my 3rd semester, I finally spoke to her on the pretext of wanting to join the college fashion team. She bluntly said I could join the backstage crew, and I fell in love with her right away. It took a year of wooing to finally get Geet to be even remotely interested in me. I was in my 3rd year of college now, a senior, Geet in her final. She was well read, always well dressed, well spoken, and spoken well of. One of the rare types who was both in the fashion team and the debate team. That was Geet. Not the prettiest girl in college, but certainly the most fascinating. The rush of the new millennium was running high in my veins. We would bunk classes for 3-4 days together, take bike trips to Shimla. We visited every discotheque, every pub, every movie hall in Delhi, ate all sorts of street food, watched a million rock concerts. Sometimes she would take me to watch plays and I would pretend enthusiasm. They were good times. My eldest sister had given birth to a boy. My second sister was engaged to get married the following year. Bunty had figured out how to use email. The winter of 2002. A typical Delhi winter. Fog-ridden mornings, shivering nights inside the blankets and quilts with heaters on, coats, mufflers, jackets, thick sweaters. On one such night, Geet and I were returning from a friend's house, heading to her place. A friend was driving. We were drunk. In the back seat of a friend's car, arm in arm, her head on my shoulder and mine leaning gently on hers. We stuck together like we were protecting each other from the chilling cold outside. The orange street lamps looked beautiful against the pitch dark night. Geet was toying with a pen and a paper napkin. She started to draw. I started to guess in my head. A line bent on one end, curved. A nose. The jawline thin, long, flat chin. Me? Not sure, could be. The eyes round, big. The eyebrows thick, almost touching each other. Definitely me. The ears pulled back like they were stuck to the head. The sideburns long. Here comes the facial hair. She struggles with it. She doesn't know how to draw facial hair. She just scribbles wildly. Looks like a mesh of barbed wires on my face. How would you draw the Pagdi, I imagine? The Pagdi is difficult. Start with the upward stroke maybe and then build everything around it. I can't wait to see how she does it. She reaches for the hair. She stops. Thinking about how to start the Pagdi, I imagine. It's okay, it's difficult, take your time. She starts to draw again. I'm looking out at a building I've been trying to locate for a long time. And now I see it. How strange, I think. I've been looking for it all this while and now I find it on a random cold night. Once you've passed it, I look back at her drawing. Hair. Short, cropped, sticking up. Cropped hair on my head. I freeze. She's passed out on my shoulder. The drawing is dangling loosely from one hand and the pen from the other. I take the napkin from her hand and look at it closely. Short, cropped, sticking up. Cropped hair on my head. I never mentioned the drawing to Geet. I kept it with me. I wanted to throw it away. I was offended at first, but kept it. Something about it stuck with me. And one night in the hostel room, as I was brushing my hair, I looked at myself in the mirror. As I tugged at the ends of my hair. It was a little past 1, the time when it's calm and quiet. That night I looked at myself in the mirror and threw the napkin out. Short, cropped, sticking up. Cropped hair on my head. With my right hand I reached out to the hair oil. Black thick oil in a green cap bottle. I poured some on my left hand and started to massage my hair with both hands. Short, cropped, sticking up. Cropped hair on my head. It sounded like a crazy idea. I immediately took the scissors and held them near my hair. I wanted to flirt with the idea a little more. I placed some hair between its blades. I was a move away from cutting my hair. Slowly I brought the blades closer together and made them gently touch my hair. No more flirting, it was decision time. Either cut the hair or release. I felt an adrenaline rush, my heart beat faster, my face redder. It was like standing on the edge of a building when both jumping off and stepping back seemed both equally attractive. I stared into the mirror. Stared so hard that I felt hypnotized by my own image. Looking straight into my own eyes. I brought the blades of the scissors together. Snip. My hair fell lifelessly on the floor. For the first time, I had seen my hair away from my body. I immediately thought of my father. He would be angry, no doubt. He would understand, surely he's an educated man. He would understand why I did this. Just because I've cut my hair doesn't mean I'm not a Sikh. I'll always remain a Sikh. I was entering the final year of college. In another couple of months, a company would offer me a job even before I finished college. And then who knows? Bombay, Bangalore, Kolkata, maybe New York. I had to start making my own decisions. From here on, I had to lead my own life. And what was the meaning of the drawing? Was Geet trying to tell me something? When I went home the following summer break, I had just one thing on my mind. To tell my father I wanted to cut my hair. I used to wear these shoes in the 11th standard. For some reason, they weren't thrown out of the house, even though they were old and torn. I wore these shoes that night. The night I told my father about wanting to cut my hair. What started as a simple request soon turned into an argument way beyond my imagination. My adamant behavior surprised me. I didn't know I was so passionate about the idea of cutting my hair. I was pulling it out of somewhere else. Something else was controlling me. I started to say things to my father that I had no control over. I would marvel at them even as I said them. What was making me do this? My father, shocked, surprised, disappointed. After an hour and a half of bickering, he gave me an ultimatum. If I cut my hair, I would have to lose all relations with the house and the family. He would not accept me as his son anymore. Over a fucking religion? I thought. Lose a son over a fucking religion? Fine then. I'm fine with that. It's my life now. I have to go out there and meet people, make a living, not stay here and rot as a lowly farmer in the suburb of Amritsar. I said it in rage, in hate, in spite. I humiliated him and I left. My mother and sister came crying after me. I shut the door to my room. I packed everything in a minute. I couldn't find my shoes. They were probably outside in the veranda. That's when I saw these lying in a corner. The left one turned upside down. I put them on quickly, put on my rucksack, opened the door and ran. Ran as fast as I could, stopping only when I couldn't see the light of my house anymore. I stopped to breathe again. It felt like a dream. Was it really happening? Was I really leaving home? It was all going so well. How did it suddenly come to this? I called Bunty and asked him to come and meet me at the railway station. I couldn't stay here anymore. I had to go back to Delhi, go back to Geet. 6th June 2003. At 7 a.m., I walked into New Age Style Saloon. Geet was there too. We had been up the previous night, celebrating the last night of the Pagdi. We drank, danced, made love. Geet tried hard to not let me slip into any kind of nostalgia, but I wasn't going to do that. It was what I wanted. The Baba put the cloth around my neck and sprayed water on it. His colleague sat outside reading the paper. It was just me, Geet, and the Baba in the saloon. It wasn't particularly hot that morning, I remember. I was thankful for that. He took out 2 pairs of scissors and combs and placed it on the table. He then reached out to the radio and tuned it to a station. And off he went. Snip. The first batch of hair. I shut my eyes. I didn't know why I did it. It was instinctive. It was as though someone was hurting something somewhere and I couldn't stand to watch it. The sound of the scissors made me picture what was happening. The touch of the comb told me exactly where it was happening. Even with my eyes closed, I could clearly see him cut my hair. In an hour, it was all done. I sat on the chair with my hair all around me. Some of it on the cloth, which eventually joined the ones on the floor when the barber dusted it clean. I put some of it in a bag and got rid of the rest. 6th June 2003, the day I became a Mona Sardar. The day I accepted the condition of losing a family and starting on my own. None of my sisters replied, but Bunty called me straight away. "Oye, Harami, kal hi tune aakhir kya sex ka donga lag raha hai?" He said. Every man leaves his family one way or another. You may as well leave it your way. I got placed with Infosys in the final term of college. It was a safe job, decent salary, but not even close to what I thought I deserved. But I was excited about going to Bangalore. I'd seen enough of Delhi. And even Heath was going to the US in a few months for her masters. It was fantastic for as long as it lasted. Everything happened with Heath, and it happened so fast. It was as though I'd lived an entire life with her. And now it was time for me to see another life. I would truly be alone now. In a new city with no friends, no knowledge of the language. A fresh start with a fresh face. So I moved in here. This 3 BHK flat. Rohit and Shyam, who work with me at Infi, joined me. Rohit is from Delhi, Shyam from Lucknow. Together we explored Bangalore. After work, we would head out for a late night coffee, which by Bangalore's definition meant 11 o'clock. We went to all the discs and pubs in the city and returned unconscious most of the times. 23 is a good age to be living in a city like Bangalore, especially for a village boy like me. It was sometime then that I got an SMS from my second sister. Marriage next month, 23rd, at home and reception in Delhi also. A text message in English. We had grown so far apart that the language between us had changed. I didn't reply. I hadn't seen my family in over a year and a half. They had never seen me with my short hair. My sister and I weren't even friends on Facebook, although I suspect she may have been checking on me. I kept checking on her, and I think she knew that. It was a strange mutual understanding. We never kept our profiles private from each other. I would regularly sneak up on her profile and see the latest pictures of my parents, the pictures of my father growing older, my parents still posing without showing any sort of affection towards each other, my father with his hands folded behind, and my mother just standing next to him like a prop. Pictures of my dogs, of my nephew, of my elder sister with her husband. Sometimes I felt like my sister would take those pictures to keep me updated. But did she show our parents my pictures? Did they secretly keep watching me? I wrote to my sister and told her that I was going to come for her wedding only if Papa was okay with it. After all, it was he who threw me out. I would come only with his permission. A few days later, she wrote back saying that he had given permission in his own way, meaning he had remained silent in his response. I returned to Amritsar. I asked Bunty to pick me up from the airport. He looked at my head and smiled and nodded. "Sex ka dunga," he said, and hugged me at the airport. I asked him to drop me a little before my house. I wanted some time to prepare. As I walked towards the gate, my heart started to pound faster. My throat dried up. I started to sweat. As I came closer, my dog started to bark and ran towards me. This would be an indication to my family that I had arrived. I started to play with the dogs, nervously keeping an eye on who would come out to the veranda. My sister and my mother arrived. I left playing with the dogs and walked towards them and touched both their feet. They tried not to look at my head. I asked for Papaji and they pointed towards his room. In his room, Papa was reading the newspaper on his chair. I entered silently and said, "Sat Sri Akal," as I touched his feet. He looked from the paper and nodded. Then he neatly folded the paper and kept it away. I kept standing, looking at him, waiting for him to say something. "Kithe ho aajkal?" he asked. "Bangalore," I said. He nodded his head, and slowly, almost like he wanted me to notice him doing it, he looked at my head. And with that, he disarmed me completely. "Theek hai, aaram karo," he said, and dismissed me from his presence. My father kept avoiding me after that. He didn't speak to me much, made sure I wasn't given much to do. I was like an outsider at the wedding. And that really made me livid. I mean, after all these years, he was still stubbornly hanging on to his stand. And here I was, gathering all the courage to come back home just to make things right. Surely he could have met me halfway. I left from 2 days after the wedding with a clear conscience. I had done my best. And if my father was going to be unreasonable about it, it's just too damn bad. I returned to my life in Bangalore and once again lost all contact with my family. I sank myself in work. I would do extra hours and sometimes someone else's work, always making sure that the manager noticed. It was all part of the plan. The project was coming to an end and would go into production soon. Someone would be sent on site to the client, and our client was sitting in the glorious city of Chicago. To be honest, any city in the US would have been glorious for me. The land of opportunities, the land of the dollar, the escalator that cut short many years of slog work, the land with Geet in it. The plan was working. My manager started to give me more responsibility, introduced me to the client, made me join conference calls with them. Pretty soon, the Chicagoans knew me by name. I was friends with them on Facebook, on chat. Some of them even recommended my work on LinkedIn. My trip to Dreamland was sealed, and my manager finally called me one day and told me that I was going to go on site for 3 months. I wrote to Geet about it, and we made plans of taking trips together. I would fly into her city, and we would go Las Vegas perhaps. And if she flew into Chicago, we could go spend a weekend in New York, take pictures at Times Square, drink coffee at Starbucks, order pizzas for $4, eat burgers for $1. Whenever I told her all this over phone, she would laugh at me. "So they say," she would say. It was Sunday, early evening, around 4. I got a call from my sister. She stopped for the first 10 seconds, her throat too heavy to say anything. It was that moment when you know something bad has happened and your mind makes a million guesses of what it could be. A new permutation every second, and you can't help it. You want it to stop, but it keeps on running. Your mind has a mind of its own, like a disobedient child who just won't listen to you. Papaji had expired. A heart stroke. Declared dead on arrival. I booked the next flight to Amritsar and left. Parents always come around, they eventually forgive you. Bunty. I can't blame him, he's no scholar. We didn't take things into account. What about death? Simple things such as death. You're walking on a road, there's land and water and trees, and beautiful small birds fly past you. And you can see far away, and it's all prosperous. And suddenly, out of nowhere, you arrive at a cliff, an abyss. It's deep, endless. the headed has come from. And that's where the road stops. There's nothing you can see further. It's the end of the world suddenly. All you can do is to turn around and look at things you've left behind. But you can't touch them. You can't change them. The birds still fly past you, but you can only watch. You can't change their course, or heave a heavier laugh with them, or enjoy the breeze under the tree any more than you did when you walked past it the first time. You can watch. You can only watch. I stayed in Amritsar for a month. It was horrible. I had no peace. I spent endless nights just staying up and listening to music till dawn. I would drive to the Vaga and watch the march past all by myself. The deathly silence of the house was eating me. Even the dogs had gone home. One day, when my mother and I were sitting by the fire, I asked her about it. Why didn't Papaji forgive me? Why was he so stubborn about it? Why lose his son over something so silly? How could he possibly hold on to this anger for all these years? And I swallowed my pride. I came back to him to mend things at my sister's wedding, and even then he treated me badly. Was it really worth all that? My mother didn't say anything for a while. Then she told me a story. A story that I thought I knew, but realized I knew very little of. The story of my father's Pagdi. The horror of 1984. She said the skies were covered with black smoke. The smell of dead bodies made you want to puke. Anyone seen with the Pagdi lost his head, no matter what age. These were people she would see every day when she went to the market, walking around carrying luggage, and now they had swords, and their shirts were soiled with blood. Who gave it to them? Who gave them the power to rip through people like paper planes? Who gave them the right to walk into our streets and rape our women and kill our husbands and brothers and celebrate? Celebrate like they were killing rats in their backyards. Every Sikh shop in Delhi was torched. Every Sikh car was charred. Sikhs cut their hairs and lost their pagdis just so they would be spared. Papaji kept it on. Apparently, Papa came in running and told my mother to start packing before they came into our street. My mother was sitting with our neighbors, Joshis, Brahmins from Allahabad. In 4 minutes, they packed whatever they could into 3 suitcases. Scenes of murder and destruction were flashing on the television. They came into our mohalla. My mother said she could hear the chants from a distance away. It was like fast gushing waters of a flood was coming towards them. They ran quickly and hid in Joshi Saab's house. The barbarians knocked on their house and went away on realizing that they were Hindus. They broke into ours and charred it. Probably upon seeing Guru Nanak Dev Ji's photograph on the wall. My mother said that I slept through all of this. All the noise and commotion failed to wake me up. It was like to me, the horror of 1984 never happened. The next day we left for Amritsar in the early hours of the morning, when the police had supposedly controlled the mob. He was a crazy man, my mother said. Any sane man would have just cut off his hair for the safety of his family, but he just didn't do it, even in the face of death. He said that he didn't know what he was going to do until the point came where he had to make a decision. And at that point, he just couldn't turn back on his faith. He didn't know where he found the courage, but he found it. And from that time, we left Delhi to when we reached Amritsar. He kept a watch and kept reciting the Guru Bani. He had lost everything, he just had his faith, and he kept his family and his life in its hands. We had been told stories about the massacre, but never about what exactly happened to our family. I wish they had. I screamed at my mother. I wish she had told me this earlier, told me and my sisters about it. We deserve to know! What was I supposed to do now? How was I supposed to make it up to him? If she kept the story from me for so long, she should have kept it from me even now. She had no business telling me. I returned to Bangalore a few days later. I called Geet and told her everything. I cried to her about how I felt so guilty, like I had betrayed my father. I felt like a coward, helpless. Like looking down that cliff and trying to find some grounding to land on. I was consumed with my thoughts of my father. I read up on the massacre, watched videos, documentaries. I realized that I had left a large chunk of my history behind. It may not have been my own history, but it was the history of my race. My forefathers. My fathers. I don't know when it was. But there was a point when I decided to not shave or cut my hair. I just didn't feel like it. And that's when I tried the Pagdi again. I picked the navy blue one and wore the white patka inside. It took me a little over 10 minutes. I was glad I hadn't forgotten, although I was clearly much slower. After it was all done, I stared at myself in the mirror. I felt like I had my second Dastabandi. It was much quieter this time, with just Geet to celebrate it with. People wanted to know, wanted to ask me, was I going through some divine intervention? Was I getting spiritual? Was I returning to my religion? I was just doing what was coming to me. Another of those times when my mind had developed a mind of its own. I don't know how long this madness will last. How long before I snap out of this feeling, this nostalgia, and cut my hair again. But till that time comes, if it comes, if I let it come, I'm content.
Thank you all for coming. We're revisiting this text after like 10 years. Vivek, when we did the production, Vivek was also performing at that time. I really want to first and foremost thank TFA for being around for 20 years. And thank you so much. Since we're on the subject of nostalgia, I must say, when I first moved to Bangalore and I was like, what the hell to do in the city? I would like to write, and I googled, and TFA was the first thing I found. And I remember it was a workshop that was going to occur on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I had a job, and I had to fake a death or something. And I'm not even kidding. And it was so lovely to, for the first time, take out your bike and not have to go to work, but have to go to a creative writing workshop in like 2007 or something. So thank you. I can't thank you enough. Not just for the award, but but I mean it just goes so far way back, and I can't. Somebody who's been helped so much by TFA, I really can't thank you. Thank you.
Just a question about, I've heard this read by someone else, and I've heard and I've seen the production, which many more characters. What changed in you decided to have many characters on stage? What changed in the way you get the text change?
Yeah.
What changed?
The text changed in terms of then I had to first and foremost make a dialogue out of it. So structurally I had to change it. I had to think of it in a completely different way. And I had to almost rewrite the play actually. When I, as a director, he's referring to the time when I chose to make, it's actually a monologue, but I chose to direct it with 2 actors. And it helped in some ways in terms of the dialogue. I could write new, fresh dialogue for it. But I also ruined the play in many ways in that production. I did because I kind of said, oh, I'll write fantastic dialogue for this, and I'll kind of so some moments I may have. It was a learning for me as a writer, but certainly it was a good experiment to have had, and it taught me a lot. That experiment to change this into a dialogue was tough. I tried to, because it was a different play.
Yeah, it was.
That's what I'm asking, what way did it become different? Because you went in that direction.
I think, also because when I rewrote it, because I wanted to create dramatic tension, all those elements and stuff, and I think I may have, let's use this, I may have forced some moments into it. That necessary. Now when I hear it today, I'm wondering why the 10-year-old director went it that way. But yeah, okay. But I may have forced moments to make it dramatic or whatever, when actually it's really...
I must also confess that when Swetanshu came with the script and he asked me to do it, of course I loved reading it, but I had just done a solo before that. So I did nudge him a little bit.
It's true.
I did
I
do
remember
that.
actually.
So, but yeah, I mean, I agree with what he says about, reading it now, because I've never read this text. I've worked on the other. So reading this now, after so many years, I agree that it should have been a one-act play. I feel like that. After having done about 20 shows of that play. Because a lot of moments were forced and the dialogue was forced, so a lot of the internal thoughts of this character was voiced by another person at times. And I think it also forced us to create imagery differently. Because in a monologue, when you're speaking, then the way you create image, I think is a lot different than when you have another actor on stage. So I think that also took us to creating some scenes which were not in the play at all. Like for example, there was a scene where I'm being ragged in DU University, at DU. So things like that, and that's what I can remember. And also, a lot of the Sardars who came to watch it, they thought the play was a little poor quality,
That's another
That's
thing.
another thing that happened in the play.
A lot of Sardars who came to watch it, a lot of them came with their sons who had cut their hair, and they really felt, they came and started thanking me afterwards.
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on? And they said, no, this should serve as a lesson. Because they saw his regret as, oh look, the character is regretting this. So you will also regret it. So then I was like, I remember speaking to you guys and I was like, I don't know how to tackle that. That I don't know.
Because you also had the other character talking at me. You see, I think that also did something for the audience to feel like that. I suspect it may not be true, but
You're too young to even know about what happened in 1984. What made you choose this
So I
subject?
spent I was in Amritsar from 86 to 91. When I say I was 8 years old. But and actually this play was, it's one of those things that playwrights say, some plays are just given to you. Like you know it, you just write it. Some plays you have to structure, you have to make. This play was given to me, honestly, because everything about Amritsar that's in there is just from memory. That research that is already inbuilt. The characters, Bunty is a person I know. Vagera, vagera. So, for me, I really felt my formative years, how far my memory takes me is actually Amritsar and Chandigarh. I was born in Chandigarh, my sister was born in Amritsar. I spent a considerable amount of time. Now, this is 86, so this is 2 years after this. So, a lot of stuff is happening. My father was in the army. He was in a division which is called the border roads. So, therefore, we were very close to the border and we were constantly like under threat of anything that might happen. So I had this thing around me always saying, Dhyan se, more than anything else, because you're also an army kid. I think I drew entirely from there when I wrote this play many years later to say, that's what I remember of this. But I know nothing about them. Like,
Correct.
nothing.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me was, what if a character, this boy, slept through it? Like it hasn't happened for him. How does he deal with it today? How does he be honest about his feelings to this? How does he get around to all that stuff? What if he's not a teenager? What if he's a 2-year-old boy who was just put to sleep and his parents are hoping that he sleeps through this? So that's the fiction bit. But I think for building this character was all from when I was.
Is there anything you would have improved? You spoke about what hasn't changed.
Yeah, no, I think I was speaking to Shinisha, right? Improve. I think this is the version of me that wrote this play. I won't touch this
Do you
again.
think your version of yourself, you would have changed, right?
Are you asking if I wrote this play today?
Yeah.
I think it would be a little different. Yeah. I think it would be different in the sense I think it would technically like tighter, maybe some technical aspects of writing there, but I think even when we were doing this, I didn't bother touching it that way. I said this has to be the guy who wrote it back then. We edited some bits out because they wanted to be very long, but I didn't restructure, I didn't touch it other than that.
So there was a lot of political things going on at that time. You don't seem to have touched on any of that.
Yeah.
Was that deliberate?
It was deliberate in as far as the time when I wrote it. I don't think the writer in me was fully aware of that. I feel like what is here is what I knew back then. Like I didn't put in any other political influences into the play more than this. That would be somewhat related to a question. I wonder if I write it today, I'll have to deal with, there was this happening, that happening also. But in a way, it was a blessing that the writer in me 10 years ago was not as informed, I would say. So.
I really like the idea of there's a lot of work happening about dating apps and Sikh men on dating apps. Yeah, there's a lot of research on that and about masculinity and desire in a metropolitan city, who gets swiped, who doesn't, and why. So that anxiety around the modernity, also the time we are talking about, right? Like Bangalore is becoming IT and people are coming together and what is seen as rural, urban. So I thought that little struggle with like drawing that. And to me it was like that desirable not, but also modern not. And 2003, which is not very far from 2001, the larger understanding of Western. And also like this idea of like this child who slept through this, and the parents wanting the child to have slept through, but not slept long enough that we cut his hair. And I feel like it's very that how much is okay to forget, who gets to be the keeper of the Pagdi, and who gets to refine the Pagdi is also sort of reflected in what you're saying about the reception of the play. We don't want you to go through the anxieties that we went through, but we also don't want you to be too far away. And that is something which is true for history of memory keeping, history of what land means to people who leave and come back, as we are also seeing. So both of that was true.
I'm just curious. Who was the other actor in the?
Something.
Oh.
She also wore a pagdi?
No, she wore.
Yes,
She was Chota Sardar.
Yeah, so she was wearing.
I remember.
Yeah, you remember that? Yes.
She,
Tied
stage
her
पे
hair.
she tied her hair or something like that.
Ha, like that small jewelry.
Correct,
It's a
correct.
small jewelry. Yeah.
And in that play, I never wore the pagdi through the play.
So when the
I was
lights
cut
went
short.
off,
Ah.
I thought we'll see you without the pagdi, and then I was like, oh.
Yeah. No, we did that for the production very.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I just wear it
now, of
for
course,
a few
I realize
seconds.
that.
But isn't there a version of this play where he doesn't go back to wearing?
Yes.
That's how it was.
Yes, there is a version of that. Yes.
I mean,
Why don't you talk about that? Why did it shift the curve?
That was not the stage.
that's what was staged.
That was the one that was staged. Because I wanted to play with the idea of him having his relationship with Pagdi, but not wearing it. Like he's like, I'm going to carry this suitcase around of Pagdis, but I'm never going to wear one. Which was interesting for me for that time to say he's also still holding on to something, not fully giving it. That was really the only reason I changed that.
Also, in the play that he staged, the play starts with him packing to leave for the US. So the play ends with him packing all of it, and we don't know if he leaves or not.
Yeah.
So that's how the idea of the pagdi was.
And in that
Right.
luggage, he has one suitcase full of Pagdis
Pagdis.
only. And everyone's like, what do you do? Yeah.
Which ending felt better for you? That you wore it or didn't? Or did it feel radical for you that you would not wear the pagdi, he was not confirming at that point of time?
You know that which ending is better?
I'm just asking. You don't need to.
The advantage with the theatre, it's fun because I can change it every time. Like film. But I can be like, let's do it without
You
this.
can do it with or without pagdi, but which did it feel like you had made a,
What if you had a production with both endings?
We should get to choose.
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. That's a really good question because I think as a writer I'm undecided about it. I don't know. I think I've just transferred that weight to my character. To say, therefore he doesn't know. If I don't know, there's no way he can know. So answer to that is I don't know. Like if somebody said, okay, finally tell us should we wear the pagdi or not? Like you tell us. I don't know.
Arvind, don't you say that, when people are writing novels and fiction of any kind, that, the character takes over and the character develops despite the writer.
Yeah, but sorry.
Did that happen?
I think it, at least for me, it happens all the time, and it's great because I feel like then I'm not doing the thinking, the characters do the thinking, and I go with it. But at some point, I think you rein it in. You also have to align it with the structural ideas and all that stuff. So, but yeah, there's a free hand to the character. But after some time, yeah, you have to also rein those characters.
Can I make one observation? We're a mixed crowd here.
Oh yes.
There is our age group,
Yes.
then there is the younger age group, and it's very interesting to see how your play has come across to both
Yeah.
age groups.
Yeah.
Okay? I was quite interested in the way the young lady in front talked about, relating the character to the metrosexual male
Yeah.
in today's context.
Yes.
To somebody of my age,
Yeah.
that wasn't
That's not
the
a thing.
focus. Okay?
Right.
That's because I've lived through the history of the Pagdi.
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting to see how your play gets interpreted by different age groups depending on, their experience
Yeah.
of life in this country.
Yeah.
silence is always awkward. Either somebody wants to fill it in or,
Thank you for the performance.
Thank you so much.